so clearly, they found Oswald's wallet at the Tippit scene. It's a slam dunk. He obviously killed the cop.
Quorum radio, baby.
Let me ask you a question. Was Oswald's wallet found or anything like that? Did that happen also, or is that not true?
It's a long story. I go into it in my book. It's actually a whole chapter. The short of it is that in 1996, James Hosty, the FBI agent who was in charge of the Oswald file, told a story that he got from a fellow agent, a guy by the name of Bob Barrett. And Bob Barrett had been out at the Tippit shooting scene, but he had told Hosty over dinner, years before, that while he was at the scene, Captain Westbrook was there, and he had a wallet in his hand, and he asked about some IDs in there, and he said, "Do you know Lee Oswald? Do you know an Alec Heidel?" And Barrett told Hosty, "It didn't mean anything to me at that time. I just said no," and that was that. He says, and then of course later we find out the rifle is traced to Oswald, and he ordered it under the assumed name of Heidel. So Barrett says, so clearly, they found Oswald's wallet at the Tippit scene. It's a slam dunk. He obviously killed the cop. Now, what Barrett didn't know is that two things. He didn't know that Oswald's wallet was actually taken out of his pocket after his arrest in the patrol car on the way back to City Hall. And secondly, he didn't know that there was a film that was shot by a television crew, a local television crew, that shows police at the Tippit shooting scene. And in one of the shots, they show police handling a wallet. Now, I knew about the footage, and when I read the story, I thought, there might be film evidence supporting Barrett's story. And I thought, well, this will show that Oswald dropped his wallet at the scene. Maybe he was handing it to Tippit, or who knows, but here's a wallet. So I called Bob Barrett, and I worked with him for several months, and we tried to find corroborating evidence that supported the story. Well, the first thing I did was I arranged with the National Archives to get Oswald's wallet out of cold storage and photograph it at the same angles that it was filmed. This wallet on the film shows up. And I was able to determine that although the wallets were similar, it clearly wasn't the same wallet. And I went and talked to Paul Bentley, who took the wallet off Oswald in the arrest, after the arrest in the car. And I told him the story. He said, it didn't happen, Dale. I'm telling you, I took the wallet out of So I traced the whole pedigree of Oswald's wallet. And I call it the arrest wallet, the wallet that came out of his pocket after his arrest.
Sure.
And then I tried to track down, where did this wallet at the scene come from? And basically, it kind of shows up, and somebody turned it in to police at the scene while they were looking for evidence. So
the second wallet,
it looks like somebody found it somewhere, and and I went back. It wasn't around the car. So wherever they found it, it was somewhere close enough, I guess, that somebody thought it might be connected, but it wasn't in the immediate area of the shooting.
Right.
And then, of course,
that particular, one second, just to clarify. So that particular wallet found near the scene of the crime was, that had the A. Heidel documents in it, right? That's what.
No, it didn't. No, see, this is the whole point. The point is that once I realized, the wallet with the IDs, the Heidel ID is an Oswald's ID. That's in Oswald's pocket at his arrest.
Okay, right. Okay.
Okay, so then it gets down to, all right, so what's the evidence that the IDs are in this wallet that's at the scene? Well, the only evidence is Bob Barrett's 30-year-old recollection that those questions were asked of him by Captain Westbrook while he was at the scene. So then I worked with Bob, and we went over. He says, I thought I put it in a report. So I found his 302 report. It's not in there. I talked to a fellow agent of his who said that Bob was known for putting all kinds of details in his reports that other agents wouldn't.
Meticulous.
Things that weren't necessary to the story, but yet here was this a key element now that he didn't include.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, maybe I testified to it in 75. No, he didn't either. So there was no contemporary record. Then I did find out that Barrett did go back. He went to the Texas Theater. He was there for the arrest. After they took Oswald back to City Hall, he went back with Captain Westbrook to City Hall. And at that time, Captain Westbrook did see the wallet, and Bob Barrett was there. And so I asked Bob, I says, is it possible that the questions, in fact, weren't asked of you at the scene, but were asked back at City Hall when we know the wallet with the ID is actually there and Westbrook has it. In other words, I thought maybe Bob's just messing up, the recollection.
Yeah. Sure.
And, as you know, and as anybody who's told a story, I go back to a story. I used to tell a story about when I was a kid. In the summer, we'd go out to my grandparents' cottage. And for years, I told this one story. And then one day, like 30 years later, one of my cousins who was there said, "That's not what happened." And she started to tell me, well, here's what happened. And as she was saying it, Bill, I realized, oh, my God, she's right. I now remember, that's what happened. I've been telling it wrong for 30 years.
Sure.
And I was convinced in my own mind that I was right. So I think, to be honest, Bob was a great guy. We worked very close with this. He had an opportunity to read the manuscript of the book before it was published, so he had a chance to change it and add any corrections. And I had to, of course, he wasn't happy that the way I came down on it. I basically said, I think he's mistaken, because I think the evidence, that's what it shows. There's no other conclusion you can come to.
Right. So what do you think it was?
And of course, I knew, I'm sorry.
No, I want to quickly ask you. So the thing is, was there in fact a wallet found nearby, or do you think maybe that was misremembering?
Well, there's a wallet on film. There's absolutely no question there's a wallet on film. But the wallet on film is not the wallet that was taken from Oswald after his arrest. So there's a second wallet. There's another wallet. Now, the conspiracy folks have had a high old time with this ever since 1998 when I published this story. And all the stuff that you read online, every single bit of it stems from my book, from the work that I did originally on that story. And of course, it cheeses me off to no end that it's been twisted and bastardized to the point where I don't even recognize it anymore. But of course, and here's the thing, Bill, while I was working on that, I was working with a friend, and I said, the conspiracy folks are going to have a field day with this. So we immediately started to think, okay, so what are they going to say? And we thought, well, they're going to say it's a plant, of course. So we're thinking like conspiracy theory. All right, so it's now. So how do we prove that it is or is not a plant? So I went at it with that idea. Let's find the truth about this. If we can knock down this, or maybe we'll find out it is a plant. I didn't know. I knew it was an interesting part of the story. But here's the one thing that's interesting is Bob Barrett thought that the wallet was Oswald's and proved that he killed Tippit. So on one hand, they would now want to champion, Bob Barrett was right. He did see the wallet, but they want to ignore the fact of what he thinks that meant. And they want to instead say, well, but he was right about seeing it, but it was really a plant. Sure. And the bottom line is nobody knows the pedigree of that wallet. I thought it might have been a witness's wallet, or for a while people thought it was Tippit's wallet, but that was all eliminated.
Right, but nobody. One question though, Dale, was that so nobody actually saw? Did somebody actually testify that they saw a wallet fall out of Oswald's pocket near the scene of the crime as he fled?
No, and all the radio and television guys who were there never reported it. Can you imagine if they had Ron Ryland was filming it. Now he said, this is the police officer's wallet, and the officer also had Tippit's service revolver, and he kind of got him flipped around. He said, well, it's it was the suspect's gun in the police officer's wallet. Well, it was actually the police officer's revolver, which got me to thinking, well, maybe it's the suspect's wallet then, right?
Sure.
The reverse. Sure. But here's the thing. If they'd have found Oswald's wallet at the Tippit scene, that would have been all over television and radio that night. It would have been all over. And the cops would have loved it. Can you imagine? We found the suspect's wallet right there at the scene. It'd be a done deal. But yet there's not a single report, Bill, not a single radio or television report. And so that begs the question, well, then apparently it had nothing to do with it. Somebody turned a wallet in.
Had anybody ever reported there was something inside of it?
Well, no, we have nothing. Now the story came out later. Kenneth Croy was a reserve police officer, and he later stated that an unknown person gave him the wallet, and also the pistol was turned over to him. Now, we know Tippit's pistol was actually commandeered by Ted Calloway, an eyewitness, and he grabbed a local cabbie and then went driving around looking for Oswald. They were going to throw down on him and do a citizen's arrest. And I know.
That was another time. I mean, let me tell you, it was another time.
Yeah. Well,
This
Ted
was
Calloway he was a Marine. He was I was going to say a former Marine, but there's no such thing as a former Marine.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
He was a Marine in World War II. He fought at Iwo Jima, the Marshall Islands. I talked to him, and he was still the same when he was in his 80s. He said, Dale, picking up that gun off the ground was like picking up a stick to me. It didn't mean anything. He said, I grabbed it and I tried to get that cabbie to find him. And I said, well, what would have happened if you'd have found Oswald? He says, I'd have thrown down on him. And I says, well, what if he wouldn't have cooperated? He says, I'd have shot him. And I believe he would have. But as it turned out, he ends up, the police caught up with them driving around and said, they took the guns. You got to go back to the scene. So they end up coming back to the scene with the pistol. So somewhere along the way, this wallet is turned in. And of course, we know there were some shells found by Domingo Benavides. And then later the Davis girls found some shells and so forth. So people were scouring the area, picking up anything that was laying around. And somebody might have picked up a wallet and turned it in. It might have had nothing to do with anything.
Sure.
So the bottom line is there's no wallet in that. There's no second wallet in evidence,
Wow.
And there's no pedigree to the wallet. Interestingly, when I finally talked to Kenneth Croy before his death, and I asked him about the wallet, and he says, well, there were 7 IDs in it, but none of them were Oswald or Heidel. And I said 7 IDs, and I said, so now I'm thinking, well, the guy's either misremembering or he's just flat out making this up. And I said, well, no, wait a minute. If there were no IDs to Oswald, you're the one that, the conspiracy folks are saying you're the guy who believes that this was Oswald's wallet left at the scene. How did you connect the wallet to Oswald if his ID's not in it? He said, well, I just assumed it was his because whoever gave it to him said the suspect might have dropped this. And because the suspect later turned out to be Oswald, he said, I just assumed it was Oswald's wallet. Yeah, so that's how things can get twisted and assumed and so forth. Especially and then as Bob Barrett, of course, said, he never saw the wallet. He never saw the ID,
Sure.